there's been a clear belt tightening here.
Yeah.
Kev tweeted this out, so I shared the screen. He says, we can sit here and applaud or criticize the 49ers moves or lack thereof, but at the end of the day, they still have to fill out a 53-man roster. We're reaching the point where many of those spots will have to come from the draft. There's nothing inherently wrong with that, except that it puts even more pressure on this class to deliver. Letting veterans walk and avoiding big signings is fine in theory, but we won't truly know how the strategy plays out until we see how the rookies perform. I mean, bottom line is, it's well said by the kid. I would say, ultimately, it's like it could be a great thing if you kick ass in the draft. Like if there's a bunch of great day 3 linebackers, if you get them and they all gel and stuff, yeah, it could be incredible. But what are the odds that they're going to hit like that? I mean, it's just, we'll see. I mean, I'm hopeful, but they've set themselves up for a situation where they have 11 picks. If they get 6 good starters out of the draft, that would be amazing. And it probably isn't going to be enough. So that's why I'm a little bummed right now, is because I know the reality of the draft and I know the miss rate. We did this project one time when we were in the Canadian League of going through and checking the failure rate of the draft. And there's a failure rate. That's why you can't trade players for one pick. You have to trade players for multiple picks because it's bites of the apple, and there's just gonna be some missteps along the way. So they've now put themselves in a spot where I kind of think you need 2 defensive tackles, maybe 3 if you're really looking for somebody who could like rush interior as well, because your D line's just decimated. You need at least 2 edge rushers, 2 guys that can play the edge. So that's probably right there. 5. You need 5 picks on your defensive line. Okay, you need at least a linebacker for sure, 1, probably 2. You need maybe a free safety. I kind of like Richie Grant. We'll see what he is. I don't know who's the answer at free safety. They're obviously still looking around, but they need a free safety. They need another significantly good corner with size and ability, like really good. They need a receiver who can run. They need another tight end who's like more of like the future tight end. They'd be crazy if they don't get themselves a running back or 2. This is one of the greatest running back drafts ever. So I don't know. I mean, that to me, they need 15 to 18 players if they're really going to be like, and they need to have some crazy once in a lifetime kind of draft if they think they're going to be a Super Bowl contender.
Yeah.
That's kind of where I think they're at. And I'm trying to be optimistic. I mean, do you see any scenario where they could be a Super Bowl contender next year?
They just have to have a lot of luck. Everybody has to come back healthy, and they just have to have a ton of luck. But look, I have no doubt that they'll have a nice draft because these guys deserve the benefit of the doubt, and they've nailed the Fred Warners in the 3rd, and the Kittles in the 5th, and the Greenlaws in the 5th, and Brock in the 7th, and John Jennings, and we could go on the line. They've done it, but the toughest thing to do in sports is once you've done it, do it again. And like you just said, they just have too many holes. I'll give you another example, and I don't know what his medicals say, but Seattle, for example, who's just dying for interior offensive line help. They were the worst interior offensive line last year in the league by the numbers, and they were just terrible in interior pressure. They could not run the football even with Kenneth Walker. They brought in our guy Tevin Jenkins today, which is a guy who slid through the cracks. He's had injuries. Seattle. And they didn't sign him. They didn't sign him, but they brought him in for medicals because he had some medical issues. But here's a guy who's 27 years old. He was a 39th overall pick of the draft a few years ago. He's had success at guard and tackle for the Bears, but he's had a lot of injuries. And so Seattle's been dying to get some interior line help, so they're talking to him, and the word is that they may sign him in Seattle. And that's the kind of signing the Niners need because, like you said, they have 11 draft picks. You're not hitting 11. You're just not. And even if you were to hit them down the line, they're not going to all hit in the first year. So a guy like that, now that we've gone through all these waves of free agency, it's almost like a strainer. Like there are a few pieces left that you can pick out of there, but you got to be smart with it. So look, like I said, I don't know what the medicals are on Tevin Jenkins. There's a reason why a 27-year-old guy who was a second-round pick and had some solid years in Chicago isn't signed to a team right now, because everybody's desperate to sign these guys. But you've got to find a couple of these guys in addition to the draft. They've got to find a couple of guys that slid through the cracks. They're going to have to find a couple of guys now that guys are getting signed. Well, you signed a free agent. Okay, well, you got to let somebody go. So you got to scour the waiver wire. That's just kind of where they are. And I'm not mad at what they've done, but the response to letting the guys go is head scratching at the least. When you have McCaffrey coming back from what he's coming back from, and Guerrero, as inexperienced as he is, I'm sorry, man. You can't let Jordan Mason go. And I get it. Mason wants to start somewhere. He deserves that opportunity. But the entire offseason for the 49ers was about cold and calculated. Hey, I need to start somewhere. Okay, Jordan, you got it. Let's trade you for a pick swap and a 6th rounder. Wait a minute. You had a 2nd-round tender on the guy. So why don't you put like a 3rd or a 4th-round tender on the guy so that the team would actually go after him and you could get a decent pick? You did a pick swap and a 6th rounder for the guy who was the leading rusher for almost the whole first half of the league last year, and perfect for the zone read, puts his foot in the ground and goes north and south. Like, you don't just give those guys away and decide that, we'll just find it right in the conference. And not only that, well, let's just go find another running back. You mean like you did in the 3rd round with Price, like you did in the 3rd round with Trey Sermon? Like, you're not exactly
Williams.
Great. Yeah, it's like
you've missed on as many backs as you hit on.
And I love McCaffrey, I do, but he's getting closer to 30. And the smart money would be what the Warriors do with Steph Curry, which is, hey, we love you, dude, and we know you want to play every down, but you can't. And we have a guy that was leading the league in rushing and can play. Now you're looking at Guerrero, who I like a ton, but as you and I have talked about a lot, he was a wide receiver for the most part in college. 1 year at Louisville where he actually got the ball. Was at Wisconsin, really didn't tote it a lot. And he had a couple of nice runs last year that were outstanding, that shows his speed and his strength and his size, but he must have missed, it just conservatively speaking, 10 or 12 runs. It was like, there's the hole, didn't see it. So he's got a ways to go, and now he's your backup. And if McCaffrey's Achilles doesn't hold up, you're a team that wants to bash people right in the mouth, right? And you don't have the running back to do it, and you don't have the center to do it, you don't have the left guard to do it. It's confusing, to say the least, because a guy like Mason, you just got to tell him, sorry, brother. Like, we're going to sign you to that 2-year, $7 million contract. That's just the way it's going to go. We can't trade you to Minnesota, a team we could be competing with, like you said, in the NFC, because you want to start. That's warm and cuddly. We're cold and calculated. So what are you? Are you cold and calculated, or are you warm and fuzzy? Because I can't give Jordan Mason a starting job somewhere against a competitor of mine because he wants it. I need him behind Christian McCaffrey, who's coming off an Achilles. Sorry. That doesn't make any sense to me.
I mean, this is a weird one, because I've known for a long time that he was going to be moving. I mean, he's I don't know what the deal is. I really don't, but there was something wrong there. I don't know what. I mean, it's just something wrong. I mean, it's like he said something that he shouldn't have said. Somebody got in his face and told him he was messed up, and he just kind of wilted the rest of the year. I mean, he played and stuff. He was still running around, but he just seemed like, like so bothered by everything. He just seemed like he really didn't want to talk to the media, didn't want to deal with it.
It was after that on the field thing, right? Where he
just said
he wasn't going to start, or someone was going to start or something. And then he didn't mean to, but he said it. And then he kind of went in the shell after that.
I think
he was going to start. When was he going to start? Something like that, right? I think
he said,
like Lisa Salter kind of a thing, right?
I think he said that the timeline for him starting, like they told me he was going to start, was a day before the public knew he was going to start. And you know the way the NFL is with their gambling and their rules and their everything. It's like, you will not deceive the gambling public even for 24 hours. You know what I mean? It's like, so I think he probably got chastised for saying that and maybe speaking out of turn or whatever. He just didn't think. But I mean, from that point on, it was like he just really was bothered. And, I agree. I mean, once again, it's like John Lynch said about Deebo Samuel, hey, we're not in the business of getting rid of good football players. You just did. You just got rid of a good football player. And, you can sit there and say, well, We got Garendo. You had them both last year, and you needed them both, and you still
Well, that's
needed them
Kyle's
both.
offense, right? I mean, Kyle's offense is put your foot in the ground and run over the defender. So it's not run out of bounds. It's not juke the guy. A lot of running backs get hurt. It goes back to Mike Shanahan's system where in Denver he had 3 and 4 backs in a year. Kyle Shanahan, the same kind of a thing. You need that. And everybody's going to think that McCaffrey's going to come back scot-free. Maybe he will. And maybe he'll just take the ball like he did 2 years ago and you don't really need a backup. But for the most part in Kyle's offense, you need 3 or 4 running backs to get through a year. Elijah Mitchell was never going to come back. We understand that. And that started his rookie year. His agent was messing with them and he wasn't they were at odds of when he was hurt. That goes all the way back to his rookie year. So I understood, again, certain guys were going to leave the building. I understood that, just like you said. Mitchell was going to leave the building. I understand that. And I like Garendo. We both do. But he's very inexperienced. And now you've got a guy coming off an Achilles. You want to run the football more than ever now. And all of a sudden, you've got him and Garendo, and you're going to count on finding, as you said, it's a good running back draft. There's no doubt about it. But now you're going from, and this is how I like to look at rookies. Rookies are lottery cards. And if they come through, that's amazing. But it may take them a year. It may take them a couple of years, whatever the case may be. And now you're at the point at so many different positions where they have to come through. They have to have a rookie defensive tackle play well, a rookie edge, a rookie linebacker, a rookie running back, a rookie receiver. Like, that's just not going to happen. It's not realistic.
I mean, it is, the further we get into this offseason, the more it becomes imperative. It's not just like an option to trade back. They need to trade back.
Yeah.
They need to trade back. They need volume. They need to trade back. And the strength of this draft ends right pretty much where they're at. The strength of this draft is in the top 15. So they may be able to get out if they want to get out of 11 because there are, Shedeur Sanders and Ashton Chianti and the tight end from Penn State and some unique players that are right there that are going to be in that 8 to 15 range. And you might be able to get somebody to move down. They might be able to move down to 17, 18, 19, 20, whatever. But if you look at the numbers, they absolutely have to. They have to move down. They also probably need to make a volume trade with Aiyuk for picks. And I'm telling you, the Browns make more and more sense every day. The Browns people, if you type in Brandon Aiyuk in Google or on X, the first thing that comes up is Brandon Aiyuk to the Browns. So it's like there's obviously a lot of people searching that. I think there's a very good chance Andrew Berry would be willing to trade his 4 6th-round picks for Brandon Aiyuk. Now, if you're the 49ers, would you take 4 6th-round picks for Brandon Aiyuk?
No, I can't do that.
I think I would, because the real thing here, John, is not the picks. It's the $110 million that you're trying to get out from underneath from Jed, which means you're not getting, I don't know if that should be their priority, but I think that is their priority. I think they've explained that to people. Think about it this way. Out of the blue, the 49ers are a rich franchise that has played deep into the playoffs for years. They own their own stadium. They're very, very wealthy. Out of the blue, people are talking about the 49ers. Well, everybody knows their situation, their financial situation. What is their financial situation? Their quarterback, who they've been dramatically underpaying for 4 years, is now going to make market rate. That's their situation. That's what all this hand wringing's about. Every other team in the league seems like they. So what is their situation? Is the situation that they have no cash, that they're cash poor? Is that why they're selling off? What is the situation? Nobody's ever really explained the situation. People have only referenced the situation. And now here we are, where they're clearly trying to shed cash. That's, are they shedding it to go spend it over here, or are they just shedding it? And what is the plan? This is a team who's the media, the fans, and the players, the locker room, everybody, the coaches, everybody associated with this franchise expects them to compete at the highest level. And right now, in a couple of short weeks here in the beginning of free agency, it almost looks like that's not going to be their reality in 2025 without a monster draft. And I know it's possible, but it's highly unlikely, and it puts a ton of pressure on Lynch and the draft people to make this happen.
Well, Buffalo did this last year. The Rams did it 2 years ago. It's a financial reset, and whether people want to believe what it is or not, it's a financial reset. They're not tearing down. They're not rebuilding. They're not doing any of those things. And the reason I know that is because you and I both know this. If they said to John Lynch, "We're rebuilding," John Lynch would be in the booth replacing Kirk Herbstreit on Thursday night. Because the only reason John Lynch is here is to win a championship. He set a goal. He's a goal-oriented guy. He set a goal, and he wants to win a championship. And then the next day, he'll be in the booth. Because John Lynch is a guy from San Diego, and I'm not saying he doesn't want to work hard, but he's busted his ass. And as you well know, because you've been in the business, being a general manager is 24/7, 365. I mean, it's just what it is. He could make more money doing TV, which he's probably better at anyway, and not have to answer to anybody, and be home 4 to 5 days a week in San Diego, hanging out, playing golf, going to the beach, than he is being a general manager in San Francisco. But the only reason he's doing that is to win a championship. So if he had the indication they were rebuilding, he would be gone. And Kyle Shanahan, everybody, fire Kyle Shanahan. Kyle Shanahan wouldn't need to be fired, because Kyle Shanahan would go to Jed and say, "Look, man, I'm not into rebuilding, bro. I've been to NFC championships games, Super Bowls. I want to win a championship. I'll go the Andy Reid route. You get me, just let me go. And if you guys want to rebuild, bring in a new coach, bring in a new general manager, do this thing over, because we're not rebuilding types. They've been too close. Kyle Shanahan's not going to rebuild. John Lynch sure as hell is not going to rebuild, because he can make more money doing TV. So those guys are still here. So I know that maybe people think this is semantics, but it's not. It's a financial reset. They'll be aggressive again, but they started to look at what's going on right now, and about $90 million now of cap hits for guys no longer on the team. And they decided, we've got to reset this thing. We've just got to decide. And that goes to your point of Brandon Aiyuk, who I thought this whole time was not going to get traded, just because the value is so low. You don't trade a stock that low. Who's going to catch the football? All these, it became personal, but you start looking at this. Hey, if you're going to do a financial reset, because Aiyuk would cost you another $18 million on dead cap. If you're going to do a reset, do the whole thing. And I'm not saying rebuild, but if you're going to do a financial reset, do it all. Just do it all.
That makes sense then, John? I mean, think about it. I mean, if you're the 49ers, Jed's got $110 million out there for a receiver that they don't want. I mean, I don't know that they don't want him, but they don't appear to want him. And when Lynch was asked about the trade rumors, he didn't say that's our guy, we're keeping him. He basically poured gas on the thing.
And he moved to a different topic. He moved to he tied it in with the money, right? He said, well, we don't want to spend money.
And then he said, well, and the good part of this is that, we're going to get younger. So it's like he referenced that he's going to trade Brandon Aiyuk for picks. And then here's a lot of talk out of Cleveland that they want Brandon Aiyuk. And I just looked up their picks, because I don't think Aiyuk is going to fetch day 1 or day 2 picks, because I just think because of the money and because of the situation, because of the injury, there's risk there. So, yes, is there gain? Yeah, Brandon Aiyuk's in the prime of his career. If he gets healthy, he could be one of the 15 or 20 best receivers in pro football in a year. But for the 49ers, he also represents $110 million when they're trying to do a financial reset. Why not take
the only thing I would do
4 6-round picks for Brandon Aiyuk? Let them take the money. There's talk that maybe a guy like Greg Newsome could be part of the deal. The other guy that I love in Cleveland, who's exactly the same thing as Aiyuk, he's just on defense, is JOK, who hurt his neck in a tackle against the Ravens, and he's kind of unknown. I mean, if you want to just go unknown, banged up star for banged up star, you do that and get a couple 6-round picks. I don't know. I mean, but I do think the Niners could really use draft volume, and there's no question that Aiyuk is not going to fetch day 1 or day 2 picks. I don't think.
Well, that's the only reason you would keep him is you look at this year and with his injury, and the reason he hasn't been moved so far, they really were going to move him, is they just haven't gotten any kind of value back in return because he's such damaged goods and you don't know when he's going to be back. So he's almost impossible to trade right
What do you
now.
want?
And
What do
again,
you
given
need?
his value. Well, here's my point is next year. So this year, if you trade him, you're going to get an 18 million hit plus who's going to catch the football for you. Now you got to go first or second round with a receiver because I don't know what Purcell is. And Jennings is a nice player where he is, but he's not a one. So now I've got to turn around with all the needs I have, and I've got to look at a wide receiver. Next year, as far as Aiyuk is concerned, if he's healthy, then you can get decent value for him. And then secondly, in next year, it's $12 million hit. In the third year of his deal, because it's a 3-year, $76 million contract, then you get out of that contract for $9 million. So a year from now, you trade him. Pearsall hopefully becomes what you drafted him to be. Aiyuk is healthy, and you trade him, and you only take a $12 million cap hit, and he's healthy, so maybe you get a second round pick for him. Because right now, realistically, I don't think you can get better than like a 4, and you might get a 4 that could turn into a 3 depending on when he's healthy. But how do you trade a guy? How do you go and talk to somebody about a guy that you say maybe he'll be back week 4, maybe he'll be back week 6, maybe he'll be back week 8? Like, what if I'm the other team? What am I getting, and when am I getting him? That's a problem for me because then I don't know how to set up my team.
Well, that's why it's got to be a reduced it's got to be a reduced cost. But the question is this: how much will John Lynch reduce the cost on Aiyuk? Because at the core, we know that the real issue here is that 110 million. It's the 110 million of Jed's money that Jed wants back, I think. We'll see. Can John offload Aiyuk for such a small price in picks or in compensation that the Browns, that the Niners can get out from underneath that 110?